Welcome back, everybody, to the Let's Play The Legend of Zelda for the NES, Part 2. Last time, we cleared out the first two dungeons of the overworld, and today we're heading off into level 3. And we're gonna totally breeze through it because of the magic power of bombs. You'll see what I mean in a moment, so... let's head on into this dungeon here, and let's get started. So one really weird glitch that I don't quite understand, and it's even something that, you know, engines like Zelda Classic acknowledge, is that for whatever reason, when you go into level 3, and it's got this, like, specific color palette, like, Link's skin color, and even his tunic color to a degree, kind of changes into, like, a brighter tone than what you're accustomed to for whatever reason. I've never really quite understood what's up with that. I don't know what kind of hardware limitation causes that, to be honest with you. I've always found it kind of weird. But in like engines like Zelda Classic, where it's like strictly like a Zelda 1 engine with some modifications and scripting and such, you can actually kind of alter it where you can turn off this little glitch. And yeah, it's a little bit funky, I won't lie. So, level 3, if you know what you're doing, this dungeon can definitely be finished in like 5 minutes, and I am not exaggerating. Like, you saw me burn through the first two dungeons quite cleanly, and level 3 comparison, I'm going to be making my bitch, as you'll see here, because there's a specific thing that's off with the first quest in particular, not the second quest, in which you can actually break a large handful of dungeons with the bombs alone. And like for the most part, in most other Zelda games, like, you know how you have specific designated sections where you need to bomb a wall, and that's where you find like hidden keys and routes to progress onwards and what have you. In Zelda 1, first quest specifically, not so much the second quest, again. For whatever reason, there's plenty of, like, walls in which you can just kind of bomb, and you can skip, like, entire sections of the dungeon. And I find that levels, like, level 3 in particular, are definitely the most guilty of this. And you can skip pretty much 70% of the dungeon if you do this. You've also noticed that I've been holding on to keys from previous dungeons. And this isn't like Zelda Ocarina of Time and onwards, or hell, should I say, Link to the Past, in which that, like, you grab keys and they're only used for that specific dungeon in particular. No, with Zelda 1, you can stack keys and just kind of use them wherever. And while the dungeons provide you with just enough to be able to explore all of them, all of the rooms within, there's also the fact that I did mention that I was not collecting like the compass and the maps specifically, and that's pretty much the reason why I mentioned that, because like if you kind of take out of the equation that, you know, you're skipping out on hints and the map and compass, you can basically just stack keys and reuse them for future dungeons, and I find that very handy actually. And I imagine it's a very helpful tool to keep in consideration if you're speeding through this game as well, because it definitely helps a lot if you find yourself in situations to where the dungeon layout is a bit too confusing and you can't find out how to get to wherever the next key is. So you can just kind of take keys from other dungeons and then bring them into, like, say a later one which you're stuck in, for instance. So yeah, we're already pretty much nearly done with level 3. This is the boss right here. And one thing that a lot of people seem to kind of neglect, especially for the first few playthroughs, is that how truly bombs really are when it comes to putting them up against bosses. Because for whatever reason, like, bombs just completely annihilate bosses that aren't, like, invulnerable to it. Like, you saw me take down level 1's boss with just 2 bombs. And then with Manhandla in particular, the one we just fought, if you place a bomb, like, in the center of its body and have it blow up in the right place, you can get rid of the flowers surrounding the body and just completely just run over the boss that way, and it's absolutely fucking glorious. And even Dondigos, even though like their weakness is in the form of bombs, like you can use the bombs in a specific way in which you can blow up their bodies quicker and even get free bomb refills if you blow them up that way. And again, I explore this game a little too much more than I should, honestly. Like, just the amount of things I know about Zelda 1's engine and how enemy AI behavior works, it's way more than I need to be enveloped in, honestly. But, yeah, this is the first dungeon in which you need something prior before you enter, and with that case being mentioned, that was me needing the raft from level 3 to get there. But, you know, outside of like minor cases like that, like you're not gonna really need stuff like dungeon items, you know, offensive ones like the arrows to some extent, to really move forward, unless it's something like the raft and the ladder, in which they're not like B button items, but rather something that you equip automatically and use for scripted scenarios. So one thing to note is that, you know, I could get the candle and, you know, make this dungeon a little bit easier, but the way Zelda 1's dungeons work is that for some reason, I guess it's again a product of its time and the fact that it's just early NES era, you know, shenanigans working its magic. There's just, in general, a lot of reused room layouts. Like, you've probably seen this similar block formation elsewhere, but like the doors were positioned differently. And I basically have it enveloped in my mind at this point as for what like block formations and like lava or water streams to expect. So if I can just kind of feel around and know what to like expect just based off of positioning alone, I can kind of go through most of these dungeons without having to rely on the candle, as you're seeing here. So, I will be getting the candle later on just to kind of make short work of some secrets in the overworld, but just a heads up, I guess I should have mentioned earlier that this is not going to be a newcomer friendly LP. Like, this is me, like, literally breezing through the game in a way nobody should, honestly. And, it really shows. So what sucks about enemies like the giant slimes and the fires here, for instance, is that, like, whenever you kill these off, like, you don't actually get money off of them unless you have, say, a stronger sword variant like the magic sword, which basically skips, like, the whole splitting phase and gives you, like, the enemy drop right offhand. So, if you ever feel like you have any reason to ignore any enemy in particular, make it be the gels or the fires if you don't have a strong enough sword variant on hand. And oh boy, the many killers themselves, the fucking likes. I don't like these assholes. Now granted, if you can slash fast enough and have a stronger sword on hand, you can probably, like, you know, kill them off if you're, you know, being sucked up by them before they eat up your shield. But otherwise, yeah, they're kind of a pain in the ass to handle. Especially if you have rooms set up like that in which, like, you have bubbles everywhere. And the enemy knockback in this game, oh boy, it's insane. Link gets sent flying the moment he gets hit by an enemy. So, you have to be really good at spacing in particular, otherwise you're just not going to be able to make it through this game, man. And that's just me being honest. Like, you have to know where to space, like, your weapons accordingly, or you're just going to get your ass kicked. It's almost like Castlevania in that sense too. Like, the moment you fuck up the spacing on a weapon or your whip or something, you're basically leaving yourself open for harsh punishment or knockback, and that's enough to basically ruin momentum in just about every way. So we're gonna take this route right here, and grab ourselves a map. And one thing I don't get, though, is that you do have, like, vaguely detailed, you know, dungeon maps at least, but why couldn't that be applied to the overworld too, you know? Stuff like that would have been beneficial, but you can also notice that it doesn't detail every single room. There's rooms like this where if you bomb in the right locations, you can find rooms like this that have money piles everywhere, and they can also be used for shortcuts and ways like this to where you can skip like over half the dungeon and basically make the dungeon your bitch, more or less. And I should have reacted accordingly. But yeah, not every room on the map is going to be visible, regardless of whether or not you get the dungeon's map or not. You're going to have to kind of go out of your way and still bomb a few rooms just to kind of find these hidden locations. And these can even apply to the dungeon item locations as well, so you definitely need to be on the lookout for those. Like, for instance, if you've gone through the whole dungeon and you didn't find the dungeon item, chances are it's probably off in some remote corner of the map that's not even, like, marked in any way, shape, or form. So, just thought I'd say that so you can kind of keep that in mind for dungeons later down the road. But oh boy, we got ourselves a Gleeok! Stab the heads a few times, and he's not too much trouble. Just make sure you kind of move out of the way of whenever he spits out a fireball. Because unlike the Acromenti or Acromentus, where if you have a magic shield on hand, you can deflect the shots, there's some special property with the Gleeok in particular where if you buy a magic shield and try to deflect the shots, it won't work at all. Even though the projectile looks the same, it has, like, different damage and hitbox properties altogether, which kind of blows, so yeah, you kind of have to be on lookout for funky things like that. So, remember kiddies, just because something looks the same doesn't necessarily mean it has the same properties. Oh boy, I'm not doing a very good job getting a whole lot of money here, am I? I'm trying to kill off as many enemies as I can, but the RNG has just not blessed me at all in this video, so I might have to go out of my way here again soon, because I'm going to really need some arrows by level 6, otherwise I'm not going to be able to move forward. Let alone a magic shield, because, ooh boy, level 6 is quite possibly, you know, right up there with level 9 as definitely the most annoying dungeon in the game, by far, and I want to be basically suited up for that. So right now, since I've got a few good tools on hand, I'm going to go out of my way and collect a few extra heart containers before heading off to level 5, because level 5 definitely has a few beefy enemies here and there that will kick my ass. If level 3 wasn't any indication with the Dark Nuts, oh boy, level 5 definitely steps it up from there. And I'll definitely admit here on out that, you know, some dungeons definitely have unbalanced enemy variants. Like, I can safely say, like, the enemies in level 3 are a bit more threatening than in level 4, despite what I had said earlier. I still encourage that you go into dungeons in the intended order, though, just to be able to, like, get items that you need otherwise to move forward. But, yeah, there's weird things like that just kind of, like, throw off your perception of just how the game balance truly is, and it's just, again, man, it's just weird NES era, like, logic, because, like, I still feel like we're in that phase where we're still trying to figure out what truly works in video games and what makes them fun and flow well, and I don't really think it was until, like, 1988 where, you know, gaming companies as a whole got a better grasp on platformers and started kind of, like, evolving from there and pushing the limits of the NES. Games like Mega Man 2 and Blaster Master are very good examples of this, where I can safely say, yeah, these games definitely know what they're doing, and they know what makes level design fun and what doesn't. Well, for the most part anyway, but you get the idea. You get the idea. Zelda 1 just kind of does whatever the fuck it wants. They just kind of throw you out on this barren, abandoned overworld and just kind of expect you to just kind of figure out what to do from there on your own. A product of its time indeed. So yeah, this is another good farming place if you ever needed some more rupees. But what I'm going for is this location right here. You wouldn't know otherwise unless you look this up on a guidebook of sorts, but I'm gonna blow up this location here. This location right here. The bomb hitbox isn't as forgiving as you think. Like, I swear, like, the hitbox for the bombs are much smaller than they indicate for some reason. It always reminds me of Smash, where you have, like, these visualizations of, like, attacks that look like they should hit in these trajectories, but they don't. And it's so annoying. Alright, so we got ourselves a healthy 3 heart containers, so I'd like to say, we're pretty good to go as far as level 5's concerned, so we're gonna head over there. Getting 3 dungeons done in 1 episode, though. We'll have to see on that. Definitely burning through this game faster than I thought I would. And I apologize if I'm not exploring the overworld as much as you thought I would. But, this is just kind of how I play the game in general. Like, once you know, like, where everything is, Zelda 1 is an extremely short game. I'm talking, like, on average, like an hour's length or so. It can definitely feel much longer than that if you're playing this on your first few playthroughs, but, once you get the knowledge down pat, Zelda 1 can easily be made into your bitch. So, let's see here. This is level 5, and of course, the candle could make it easier, but, I'm just gonna skimp out on money for now until, or skimp out on getting it until I run into it on, well, I don't know. The next item I want to buy is definitely the magic shield, and, that costs a fair bit of money, so I'd rather save for that than go after the candle now. Or actually, no. See, that's a good question, because, like, I need the arrows by level 6, and I also need the magic shield, so that level 6 isn't a huge pain in the ass. And, yeah. I might just have to do some off-screen grinding and... Indeed. Oh boy, that's not gonna be fun. So yeah, these are the Dark Nuts. Again, this is early NES era logic, where if you run out of enemy ideas, you basically take a similar looking enemy and change its color, and then suddenly it's stronger. And Dark Nuts are much beefier than their red Dark Nut cousins. And they also, it's hard to notice, but they also move a little bit faster too, so your reaction time has to basically be on point. It's best to strike them from the sides. Like, you're encouraged to hit them from the backside, but they move so fast that it's kind of annoying to kind of, like, set up your sword in a way to where you can basically guarantee a hit from that angle. So, I like to kind of have them casually stroll by and then have a sword placed where they're going to come at me from, and basically it gets the job done from there. But if you're a first-time player, though, bombs also help because it rips through their armor. It kind of ignores, like, the defensive hitboxes from the front end of their sprites, so you can kind of use bombs in general to negate that issue altogether. But again, bombs come in such limited supply that you really need to be smart about where and when you use them, because You need so many of them, man. God damn it. In fact, I also forgot that there's also a bomb upgrade in this dungeon too, and I could really use it because levels like level 7 in particular really require heavy usage of bombs, and my knowledge of level 7's layout isn't the best. So I'm gonna have to kind of rely on a good fair bit of trial and error to get through that dungeon, and that means heavy extensive bomb usage, and that's not gonna be too fun. I did not want you to turn around. Jesus, they're not giving me rupees. Ugh. But yeah, here is the whistle. The whistle here opens up a few overworld secrets and is also the primary key needed to beat the boss of this dungeon, so make sure you don't leave home without it. Not like you'd be able to leave home anyway, because you kind of needed to beat the dungeon. What the hell am I saying? But you get the idea. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to purchase this or not by the end of this dungeon. If I have enough rupees by the time I finish level 5, I'll definitely come out of my way and get this. But there's your bomb upgrade. There's a grand total of 2 bomb upgrades in the entirety of Zelda 1. And each of these bomb upgrades increases your maximum capacity by 4. And considering that you can only hold up to 8 bombs at a time from the get-go, that's definitely super beneficial to have on hand. It's not like later Zelda games where they're super overly generous and give you like 10, 20 or so bombs at a time. Zelda 1's not too forgiving when it comes to how many bombs you can hold at the same time. But if I do plan to purchase the bombs at some point in the game, I'm definitely going to be sure to get it like off screen or so, because I don't want to spend too much time grinding money in front of the camera when I've already done that in part 1, just to kind of give you guys an idea of just how annoying it can be and how strict the RNG can be on occasion. Well, I don't even think it's strictly RNG either. I think it's like, it's a combination of that, and from what I recollect gathering from a speedrun video, it's also dependent on like how many enemies of a similar class of enemies you beat, and then like whatever enemy class number, like, okay, so like imagine the Tektites and the levers being in the same class of enemies, and they have their own like spawn rate of items, and if you beat, like, say, like you make the 4th enemy of that group be like a Tektite or a lever, then you're pretty much always guaranteed to have like whatever it is the 4th item's going to be, which is like, say, a blue rupee, for instance. And I think that's kind of interesting. Like, that definitely takes a fair bit of time to like really look into and kind of plan like your routes accordingly, so you can make sure you run into like all of these different routes and make sure you get like the right drops. Otherwise you're gonna make like this journey super painful because you're not running into enough bombs or whatever. It's technology like that that I find fascinating. But don't mind me, I'm just a big dork. But yeah, once you get the dungeon item of level 5, the dungeon itself kind of falls apart a little bit, because like the second half of it is mostly linear, with a few like non-obligatory like branching paths that don't really net you much of anything, just a bunch of dead ends. So if you stick on one path mostly, you'll be fine. I just want to farm these Gibdos here to see if they have any spoils, and they do. So I appreciate the free key. Alright, so this layout I know for certain is... let's see. Yeah, this one's got water in it, so I can just use my ladder to breeze through it. But again, it's crazy. Like, once you know, like, how room layouts work for the most part, you can just kind of, like, guesswork your way through it, and it's not really too much of a problem. But don't follow my example here, guys. Like, don't do this on your first playthrough. Like, for fuck's sake, just don't. Make sure you grab a candle before you tackle dungeons like level 4 and onwards, because you're gonna super wholeheartedly regret it if you don't. But man, killing these Gundos have definitely done me a world of good, though, because they've been dropping a whole lot of keys. Would have definitely have helped to have, like, the arrows beforehand, before coming into this dungeon, because one really annoying thing about Zelda 1 is that, like, the bow and the arrows are, like, 2 completely separate items, and you have to have both in order for it to function correctly. And, I still don't have the arrows yet. So, fuck me. So yeah, that's the boss right there. Simply just need to play the flute in order to have it split into smaller pieces, and that's literally it. The boss itself is just a small little puzzle and nothing more. But yeah, we're making some pretty good progress. I don't have as much money as I'd like, but I'd like to say I'm sitting within a comfortable spot within how far I am currently in the LP. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and finish off the episode here. So next time, Let's Play The Legend of Zelda 1 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I'm gonna grind off screen for a little bit and get myself a magic shield. So thank you guys for watching, and then I'll see you all then.